All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ESL Pro Series Season 11. TJ Azumo, my friend, are you ready for the next set, man? We have another semifinal on the way. Fusion taking on Monster Kittens, and I don't think that's one everyone expected to see.
No, and Monster Kittens led by their wild card top laner, Acadian. He had really crazy performance yesterday. He played Rengar top in their first matchup, then played a Yasuo top, and in both matches he carried super hard. Team Fusion had a little bit of a rough start yesterday against Storm. They lost the first match and then came back and won the next two. So both these guys had a grueling series yesterday, but they're looking to make it to the finals. And of course, Team Fusion looking to prove to the world that this roster is still as good as their last.
Yep, they definitely had their struggles, though, as you mentioned, and they barely pulled it out in that game number 3 after a really massive fight over at Baron. And, well, let's see if they've maybe worked out some of the kinks. Monster Kittens coming up with some pretty convincing wins of their own. As you mentioned, Acadian really was an absolute wild card, and he played 3 different champions. We're not used to seeing that kind of style of play. The top Rengar, too. He goes for the Ryan Choi build, and it actually paid off in the end. Yeah. Really curious to see how this one works out and what, in particular, Fusion decides to ban away, because there's just so many awkward and weird weapons. They are going to take off the Rengar.
Yeah, the big thing about having those picks like that where they're unusual picks that deserve a ban, like Rengar, or like in the last series, the Jace coming from Kyle, is that it opens up more opportunities for your team to take higher priority picks because it's just opening up more bans. And Acadian doesn't really play orthodox things. He played in the top lane Rengar, Jarvan, and Rengar, Jarvan, and Yasuo yesterday in those 3 matches from the top lane. So that's not what we're used to seeing, and I think teams are really not used to seeing that as well.
Yeah, now Monster Kittens is doing a little bit more of a conventional series of bans. The Zed's taken off the board for they've gotten rid of Lissandra, who has been very popular. Flex pickup, Chunky Fresh, enjoying a bit of that as well. So we'll see how this one goes. And by the way, just to make sure no one's confused, Fusion did not sub out their AD carry. Vampire Goku is, in fact, Nien Tanso.
Yes, it is.
But he's very creative at his alternative account names, apparently.
And it's a funny story. Our admin told us yesterday. He asked Nien, who yesterday went by Uzi Pig Deft, and he said, "Hey, can you exit the lobby and go on your main or change your name back to Fusion Nien for clarity?" And he said, "Okay." And he exits the lobby and comes back as Fusion Vampire Goku. So he's definitely a little bit of a jokester.
Oh, wait just a minute.
Rek'Sai left on the table for the very first game.
And instantly picked up. Not even thinking about it.
Whoa.
We're going to get to see Nintendo on that champion. I'm really surprised that made it through the ban phase.
I don't know if that was an oversight or if that was just Monster Kitten saying, we don't really care if you get Rek'Sai. That's a bold statement that they're making there. We'll see if it comes back to haunt him, because Rek'Sai is widely regarded as very, very strong and almost a permaban across every region.
Could be a top lane too. This doesn't.
It's a flex pick. It's the league of flex picks right now.
To be a jungle Rek'Sai. The Jarvan is picked up by Monster Kittens very quickly, and that's a pretty strong thing. We saw MKSJJ play a variety of champions yesterday too. I believe Vi as well came out pretty big, so they still have some options on the board for themselves. Janna locked in now, and they'll see what Fusion is going to take on their second rotation. Azir is up, and he's had some success on that champion as well.
Chunky Fresh as well played the Azir yesterday.
That's true.
So once again, going with more flex picks and high priority picks, because Azir is actually banned quite a bit. I'd say, I don't have statistics in front of me, but I'd say he's probably at about a 75% ban rate across this ESL Pro Series Season 11. And the games that he has been played in, he's had a lot of success.
Speaking of success, though, Mini-Me played a pretty beastly LeBlanc in their previous series.
Yeah, he played it 2 out of 3 games yesterday. And I said yesterday, he's a relatively unknown player. He's a solo queue player. And talking around to some of my challenger connections, they were saying the only thing I could get from them is that, oh yeah, he plays a good LeBlanc. And you look at their ranked 5's history, he plays a lot of LeBlanc. So the only notes that I had on him, he plays a good LeBlanc. And then after yesterday, even adding onto the notes, I was like, well, what do I know about him? Well, he plays a pretty good LeBlanc, so that champion, definitely a good pickup for them. Yeah,
you know what? Funny thing about Fusion and Monster Kittens mid laners is that they spell out a sentence, or like a question and an answer. Who is he?
Well, you could say that about anything. Who is he? Any response after that is
no,
could
but
be a name.
you look at the two of them, and oh, never mind.
Okay, well,
Vampire Goku doesn't
that's a
fit
good
in the
point
same
out.
space, is what I'm getting at.
No, you're
But
right.
yeah, they're going to be able to lock in the Kassadin. Corki has been, of course, a very popular choice as well. Ezreal, though, Hoofspark, it's a little bit more his style.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been saying, oh, you should go back to Draven. You should play Draven. It's very hard to play Draven properly, and in this flexible pick meta, as well as a very mobility and kite-centric meta, it's difficult to justify a very dangerous but fragile champion like Draven.
Spark, formerly known as Viagra Pancakes.
Yeah, that was a great name change.
And he was known as to be like a Draven main and only Draven player, and that's what he used to climb on up to Challenger. We criticized him earlier on in the expansion tournament because he just didn't play very well. But yesterday he actually had some really great performances, and he made me eat my words for what I said during their very short stint in the expansion tournament. So it looks like he's broadened his champion pool as well. He doesn't rely on the Draven pick anymore, and it doesn't even draw bans anymore, just because Draven just isn't as strong as he once was.
Oh, boy.
There it is.
We've seen it before, and they have the knockups to Accoutrement. It looks like we're going to get to see Acadian
Locked
once
in.
again on the Yasuo, but they're up against an Azir, a Kassadin, and a Rek'Sai. This is going to be incredibly difficult for Monster Kittens, but it should be a very explosive match.
Definitely. And they are also up against the original top lane Yasuo Master, and that was Nien. When he was transitioning from being a top laner, after he left COG, before he joined Fusion, he was playing for Frank Fang Gaming, and he actually played a lot of top lane Yasuo and drew bans almost every single time. So he's going to try and show the old school Nien up. So
They'll have to maybe know how to deal with that as well. And we didn't actually see the switch at the last moment of the champions, but presumably the Rek'Sai jungle Azir should be going top. Well, they have the option to switch Cast into the top, but it's so much more easy to punish than the Azir.
No.
I would think they definitely, they put that on Chunky since he had some success on it yesterday as well.
He also had success on it yesterday, but also Chunky hasn't had much time to adapt to the top lane yet. And having a big champion pool right now is sort of beneficial to him. Well, having a crossover champion pool, champions that played mid, that he could have played mid, that he now plays in top lane because he used to be a mid laner, is pretty good. So I can imagine that we didn't get to see the swap at the last second, but it's probably going to be that Azir up top.
Yeah, I don't really have any question that would be the way they played it. It creates a nice pocket of zone control. It's a lot safer to play, generally speaking, in the early stages of the game, especially where a Yasuo can get rolling. And there you go. Lo and behold, out of the gates, we have all members of Fusion making their moves, mostly to this mid side of the map, actually. Nintendo X on that Rek'Sai. I'll be curious to see how that works. This will be the first Rek'Sai in competitive that I think I've seen, period.
I would agree. And it's a champion that I'm sure these teams try and scrims, but it's nearly impossible to try and solo queue in rank 5 just because of how high the ban rate on Rek'Sai actually is.
Yeah, it's been 100% up to this point, but here we go. Monster Kittens going for a bit of a deep ward invade, and they'll see if they can't get any catches. These guys are so bloodthirsty. Every single time they see an opening, they'll do it, but look at that. Without missing a beat, Fusion doing the same thing and getting the vision in the opposite side of the jungle.
Yeah, Monster Kittens in all 3 of their matches yesterday, they were very, very aggressive with their movements.
And Vampire Goku goes down to a turret.
It does.
That's actually, I think a lot of the times you have players that go really deep to get wards do that just because it's faster than trying to back.
Or he's just Nien.
Or he's just Nien.
There's also another option here, so
It's always a chance.
yeah.
But curious way to start it off, but everything else is fairly normal. Fusion, they've been the one team that has pulled a couple of tricks up their sleeve, but they're not going to be doing it this time. Standard lanes is what it looks like to be the start.
Oh. Monster Kittens gonna take an early Gromp here, and it's actually spotted out, but this doesn't really open up any opportunities for Fusion. It just basically tells them, hey, we need to push the lane early, or try and freeze it up as much as possible to deny as much CS as we can from this bottom lane for Monster Kittens.
Yeah. it should be a fairly typical start for both the junglers, but you know, the incredible mobility that a Rek'Sai possesses is going to mean Monster Kittens have to be especially on their toes at about all times and very vigilant about clearing out those burrow holes.
And Rek'Sai's damage as well is just pretty absurd, especially with Max Fury. She can pump out crazy amounts of damage in just a short amount of time, so Tendudex getting going with this jungle here. Going to be a little bit dangerous, but Acadian just doing his thing, and he was getting some solo kills in lane yesterday when he was playing his top lane Yasuo. He was escaping from situations that he had no business escaping from.
He really schooled Flares on a number of occasions, and you know, truthfully, he's a very good player. Flares is that, you know, has had some tilt issues in competitive tournaments in the past, but really, Acadian was just rolling away with that game, and he's already doubled the CS and then some on Chunky Fresh to start this one off. Of course, Chunky did take his time about that, getting to the top lane.
So these new Fusion members are still a little bit unproven. Of course, Chunky Fresh was he's a sub for the team. He used to be a mid laner, and then he had to sub in at the support role during the expansion tournament for Glebe. And then with McNoon leaving, they made the decision to move him up to the top lane. And yesterday he had some shaky games, but overall he was pretty successful. I think his Azir game was probably his most successful game. He also had a good Lissandra game with a near game-winning Frozen Tomb to close it out and win them the series.
Yeah, and that was really incredible play from Chunky, and you know, he's been talk about that in a minute. Executioner Ken, he's caught up on a line, and they'll change direction, look for Hoof Spark, but I don't think they'll be able to find too much there. Trance Therapy with a nice hook does take a little bit of abuse, but going back to Chunky Fresh, you're right, he's a player that has come up very big in clutch situations. They've needed him to, and they're happy to have him on the board. There we go. Oh no! Nien gets interrupted in mid-transit and has to burn his flash as well as his Valkyrie. Here we go, though. They may have a chance. Nintendo Deck's going to burrow his way over. That's going to be MKS JJ taken pretty low. First blood does go over to Nintendo. Looking for a double. It's going to go over to Nien this time, but Hoofspark also in trouble. I don't think they quite have the damage, and meanwhile, Huhi gets a solo kill in the mid lane on Mini-Me.
3 members down already for Monster Kittens, and right off the bat, Fusion's out to a gigantic lead. And that's just a little bit of overextension there by MKS JJ. Now, he had an opportunity to blow a flash, and he took it, but then he just stuck around a little bit too long, trying to force Nien and Trance Therapy out of this lane just a little bit too much, and stuck around, and a great counter gank by Nintendo Dex. Giving Rek'Sai that first blood is just not something that you want to do. It's already a champion that has near 100% ban rate in this tournament, and it's already a powerful champion to begin. But giving Nintendo an early lead should spell bad things for Monster Kittens.
I was going to say earlier, too, the reason that he was able to get there so quickly is because not just of the mobility, the tunnel, a really good wall jump, or in this case, wall burrow ability, but the clear time on that champion is just so incredibly fast. Well, MKS JJ still had a few camps on the top side that he actually hasn't even cleared out. Nintendo was able to clear his entire jungle and do it all over again. To the mid lane, though, Huhi is giving Mini-Me kind of a hard time here. This is going to draw MKS JJ up to just show face and defend for the time being, and Trance Therapy is on the roam, and we haven't actually seen as many roaming supports in the early game as we might expect. But Trance is definitely a player that has the experience to do this. He's been on a number of different teams, though. This is going to leave Nien Tanso a little bit vulnerable for the time being, taken kind of low, trying to shred down the armor. Here we go. The Lantern is on, and they'll keep him safe for the time being. Executioner Ken, very low. Shield is on him, but he's not looking too healthy. Neither is Nien, though.
Nien, he has absolutely no fear, and that's a comment that I made a lot yesterday. He'll stay in situations far longer than most AD carries will. And a lot of times it allows him to just come out on top of trades more than he normally would. Now, these burrows could be a big deal here. Monster Kittens hasn't really had an opportunity to come and break these down. And Nintendo Dex is actually very close to hitting level 6. He's actually just... The experience bar, it looks like it's actually full. So just one more camp. And
the animation for stomping out a burrow is kind of funny.
yeah.
It looks like they're just like putting their foot and digging the dirt into the hole.
Yeah, well, they get it, so.
Be able to pull that one off. Yeah, very necessary, too, as it's way too easy of a gank path opportunity for Nintendo, who has those burrows scattered about, mostly his own jungle, a few in the forward position. So far, Fusion, perfect game for them, 3 kills to 0. 7.5 minutes in. Acadian has been pushed back a little bit, but he still retains a farm lead over Chunky Fresh, and he's playing a little bit more conservative right now. I think he's a little worried about where Nintendo X might be at any given point.
So far, only action we really had was that bottom lane, but every lane but the top lane seems to be doing really well for Fusion right now. Now, the big thing here is Nintendo needs to focus on shutting down Acadian. And they're actually engaged on each other here. They're duking it out. But they are going to back off from each other. And this is a tough matchup for LeBlanc. Especially post-level 6, once Cassidy gets some mobility. Cassidy already does pretty well against magic damage users just because of his passive. And on top of that, he has a magic damage shield, which just doesn't allow LeBlanc to be able to burst him as much. So it can be a little bit of a tough matchup, and you can tell who he's just suffocating. Actually got a really early kill, a sub-level 6 kill on Mini-Me, which is not something that we're used to seeing.
Especially considering Mini-Me's pedigree on LeBlanc, too. He's been very capable on this champion, and a really awkward situation when you get solo killed by who's also very, very competent on this Caston, but you don't expect that pre-6 especially.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, Rants are going to look for the pull-in. Hoof Spark. Going to move to hook up Executioner again. Does not happen, however. Still holding their own in this bottom lane. And 20 CS lead now for Nien Tanso over Hoof Spark. Making life a little bit hard for the Monster Kittens bot lane.
The big thing to look out for here for Monster Kittens, though, is allowing Nintendo X to capitalize on his mobility across the map. You mentioned earlier, Rek'Sai has really potent clear times, really strong clear time. And Nintendo's been doing a better job of just keeping up in experience and keeping up in farm. Because he knows that Rek'Sai scales really well. Rek'Sai doesn't really have a weak point in the game. One of the reasons why she's banned out so much is just because strong ganks, strong mobility, strong clear times, just so many strengths and not too many weaknesses.
Not to mention the amount of scaling that you can accomplish too. You see the Devourer enchantment picked up there for Nintendo X.
Not something we see that often.
No, that's one of the few champions you definitely put it on too.
For sure.
I mean, it's just the immense amount of clear time, the mobility. We haven't seen a Void Rush. Nintendo's not really doing the serious ganks, but he's able to tunnel over, finds Trance Therapy. MKS JJ throwing down the Cataclysm. Trance Therapy's down, but they've answered back in kind, and Hoof Spark trying to deal with Nintendo X, but he's burrowed down and he's getting away.
So at least there's a 1-for-1 trade, but up in the top lane,
yep, Hui, not fooled by Mini-Me's clone, will find Acadian chasing him down, but he's able to Rift Walk out of danger, and Hoof Spark is bursted down by Nien Tanso.
Just stuck around a little bit too long down that bottom side of the map, and that's a mistake that they cannot really afford at this stage, because Hoof Spark was already falling behind. Hoof Spark playing Ezreal, champion that needs some more time to ramp up. He's going to be 30 CS down, and because of this, Fusion is able to pick up a dragon. This is a 4,000 gold lead at 11 minutes. That is absurd. That's the largest gold lead we've seen of the day.
Yeah, oh, the long-range hook! And Executioner Ken helps Hui to a killing spree, a Trance Therapy with a brilliant hook there. And here we go now, Acadian trying to push onto Chunky Fresh. Emperor's Divide into tower range. He's still about as healthy. A lot of solo kill situation, and there we go. Rek'Sai going across the map, but just to get the jungle farm. That is like a terrifying sound when she does the Void Rush.
And sometimes it can be hard to find opportunities because it's not like teleport. You can't just choose wherever you go. You have to have those burrows, and it can be really hard to keep burrows in a position where you're going to be able to use it to like assist in a gank. And right there, using it to just keep yourself up and farm is actually a really smart idea because he knows they just got the dragon. The lanes are backed. There's not really going to be any opportunities for him in the next couple minutes while the ultimate is on cooldown to really make a use of it, at least in the lane. So keeping ahead in experience from MKSJJ, who's only level 6 compared to Nintendo's level 8, keeping up in farm as well is a pretty big deal.
Yep, now. Whoa, flash burn by Hoofspark. I don't think he's going to live still. Whoa, boy. Nearly got him with the Praise Seeker, but in the end, it goes over to the Entanso. 3-1-2 on this game. Fantastic Corki play. And again, look at the mobility with those burrows that Nintendo X just has. He's able to get all around this bottom side of the map, and he's even going into the enemy jungle for a little bit. Besides, better of it, though, moves back.
Not something you see very often at this stage before first items are even completed, a solo kill from the AD carry. And it wasn't even like a duel. Hoofspark just got sort of surprised. And Nian was just able to kill him outright before he even hits that Trinity Force mark. So if that's an indicator of Nian just being dominant this game, if it's not an indicator, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, Nian's doing incredibly well, but also look at this, the confidence riding incredibly high. Huhi, 3-0 on Casted, picks up a Medjai's Soul Stealer. It's not an item we're used to seeing outside of Janna builds these days.
Bold move there, buddy.
Very bold.
When you have this much of a gold lead, though, this early on in the game, 5,000 gold lead.
Yeah, it's really not that big of a risk. If it ends up being shut down and you have 0 stacks, you can always sell it back. You have
it's a little bit inefficient, but
yeah, but you have a very early completed Rod of Ages for Huhi as well. Like, this is normally an item you finish around, I'd say 15, 16 minutes, so he's already got it and a Medjai's. I mean, that's completely fine for the time being, and if he doesn't die, he's even better shape. Ooh, mini-me. He's taken low. Ooh, he's, again, able to get out of danger all the time. Easy peasy with the Rift Walk.
Still is just, can't tell how many stacks he actually has in the Medjai's, but I think he just purchased it.
I think he did without getting the 3rd kills, but it starts with 5 now.
Yeah.
So it's not quite gold efficient, but it gets to that point pretty quickly. Hoofspark, though, in a little bit of trouble from Chunky Fresh on the bottom. The soldiers, not quite enough to poke him in, but here comes Huhi looking to add to that Medjai stacks, and he will.
Oh.
Ooh, boy, with the Null Sphere.
Yeah, Hoofspark is having a really rough time so far this match. Hasn't been able to catch a break. As soon as he gets back to lane and starts farming, the Fusion just makes him pay.
I like how they've lane swapped in this situation, too, because Chunky's able to deal with just Hoofspark. They're going to bring so much attention to the top of the Cadian, although they've jumped on the Anton, so Lantern is on. He's able to dodge away from the Steel Tempest and get out of harm's way. MKSJJ going to try to force something to happen. Hook is on him, though, and he's in the box trying to fight 1v2, and his teammates are leaving him for dead. It's going to be another pickup for Antonso. And now Huhi and Nintendo X are moving up in position to try and maybe get another couple of picks. Huhi already finding Executioner Can. They're moving around the side of the Howling Gale, already in tower range, though. Should be safe for now, although the Praise Seeker will stop one of the backs.
Yeah, Huhi is not done yet, though. He really wants to go in here and Executioner
Can.
Oh,
he's going to get it, but Nintendo stealing it away with the Praise Seeker.
Wow. That doesn't matter that much. But
for those Medjai stacks, man.
Yeah, when you have the Medjai's, then that's maybe a little bit of oversight.
Oh, Mini-Me finds Chunky, though. This actually could be a good pickup for them. They're going to need something back. Emperor's Divide, though. Wow, Chunky Fresh escaping. And actually, he could maybe take this one. No, he's taken incredibly low. Mini-Me has to back away. He turns it to Hoofspark, who will be able to get the kill, but they needed 2 members to do it. Very dire in this early game.
It's a very small consolation prize for what they just lost there. Losing a couple members up top lane, losing that 2nd-tier turret up top as well, and another turret here in the mid lane. 10,000 gold.
Fusion are massively outclassing Monster Kittens right now in this first game. They've given up way too many objectives. They just don't seem to have an answer, and they're not clearing any of the burrows out. Look at where Nintendo X is placing these. They're all around the pits and the side of the jungle that he needs to get to very quickly in situations. He's got a couple forward burrows that are easy to clear away, but Monster Kitten doesn't have time to deal with this.
And they're not letting Acadian have room to breathe here. They're not letting him. They're not putting him in a position where he's going to be able to carry.
He's going to certainly try to shut down Huhi, though. Waited patiently in that brush, but look at how easy they're able to trade, and Huhi just bails out of harm's way. No problem. Acadian just isn't in that same position as he was against enemy.
They lane swapped on him. They send Chucky down in the bot lane to not give Acadian any kill potential on that Azir. Put him in a 2v1 situation, so...
Oh, Mini-Me finds Chunky fresh. Emperor's Divide into tower range. He's going to be able to back away. Still incredibly dangerous, and now the second win for Fusion. They're going to try to find something flay back. MKS JJ Monsoon is on from Executioner Ken. Pushes them far back enough, but it's still continually close calls. Here comes Executioner Ken. What was he doing that far forward? Huhi getting the, but a shutdown goes over to the Yasuo. Acadian manages to finally get one in the pocket, but he's gonna die to a double kill from Huhi, extending those Magi stacks even further.
Yeah, I think that's 13 that he has now. So if he gets to 20 stacks, that's going to be a very scary Cassidy that they're not going to want to deal with. Already getting more than efficient gold value out of that Majays.
Yeah, and they're pushing towers way too fast for Monster Kittens to handle. It's already a 5-tower to 0 this time. That one's actually real too, by the way, because there's only been one Azir tower, and it's on the other side.
And Dragon is up now, going to be able to be the second Dragon of the game for Team Fusion. And this stage, you have to sort of think, what can Monster Kittens do to get back into this one? And I'm having trouble finding it. They're still waiting for Hoofspark to ramp up. He's not nearly as useful in these fights as Nien. And Minimi just hasn't been able to find anything. He was in a rough matchup early on against Huhi. He died early on in lane, which is not something that you can afford to do against the Cassidy, who is going to outscale you. And Nintendo X just had so much more of an early presence than MKS JJ. Not only did he keep himself ahead in farm and in experience by being able to clear the camps more quickly and not wasting as much time in the lanes, he had that beautiful counter gank early on down the bot side of the map, capitalizing on the overextension of MKS JJ, and being able to pick up that first blood was really what started this all off.
Yeah, it's really just kind of led this snowball around, and Nintendo actually going over to see if he can maybe get a steal, and then he just gets the Lantern out to safety. Trance Therapy is there. Burrows are slowly creeping on forward. Monster Kittens just feeling the timer hanging over their heads. 19.5 minutes into this game, and a massive lead for Fusion. You said it before, 10,000 gold. Well, that's about 11,000, pretty close to it at this point, for Fusion ahead of this game, and they just aren't giving anything up for the Monster Kittens right now. No towers taken out. I don't care what you see on your screen. That was just an Azir turret. It doesn't count.
Yeah, it's cheating. Turret count is cheating. But Fusion just, at this point, they can do just so many things and still win. They can do just about anything. No choice is the wrong choice right now.
No, not at all. I mean, they don't want to dive too far under turret, maybe give up kills and give an opportunity, but their siege is actually quite good here. And they can continue to just push this in and not really worry about too much protection.
Oh, no.
He's going to try to make something happen. The Monsoon doesn't go the right direction. Nintendo is going to burrow away. Mini-Me getting shut down. They have to bail out of this one. Even in this situation, though, they're still coming up ahead in kills. It is 2-1. Hoofspark will find Chunky fresh, but now all of a sudden, Monster Kittens are backing off this pursuit. Nintendo is not even leaving, and no one is dealing with Huhi in the top side. And
Whoa!
Look at this, a 21-minute surrender. Fusion coming up with a win after completely demoralizing the Monster Kittens in that game. And it wasn't even close to over yet, but they just had no hope.
At that point, when you're that far behind in a game, sometimes it's better to just get out of that one, clear your minds, and try and move on to the next one. It can be a little bit demoralizing to just sit in a game that is almost a for sure loss. I mean, being 11,000 gold down at 19 minutes into the game is not a situation where it's even slightly possible for you to make a comeback. So just well played by Fusion. Rek'Sai making it through once, and it's the first 20-minute game that we've seen in this tournament.
Never again. We'll see if that does happen. Intended playing that champion to absolutely great effect. Burrows in all the right places, was able to kite and stay alive. Really good siege and snowball from Team Fusion this time around. Monster Kittens just had nothing, could not get a single thing, and they were just turned away. So that is right. Sometimes you want to focus on the next game. We'll see what they can do in picks and bans coming up in just a second. But what really can they do other than just make sure they take certain things off the table at this point? Because there were just so many strong options for Fusion, and not just because of the Rek'Sai.
MKSJJ needs to have a little bit more of an early impact. I don't know if he necessarily felt as comfortable on the Jarvan as we saw him on like Vi or something yesterday. So he tried to force that gank bot early on, and then after that, he really just didn't do much of anything. Kittens was never really in a position where he could find opportunities for kills. Chunky Fresh, while he didn't do that much in the game, he kept Kittens under control, didn't fall too far behind, and didn't make that Yasuo pick really work out for Monster Kid. So we'll see what they decide to change things up with this game. They go ahead and ban out Azir and Rek'Sai.
Yeah, Zed's off the table too, and these are mostly targeted bans with the exception of the Rek'Sai having to be a more general one. So MKZ takes it off on blue side. Honestly, they probably could have left it and taken it, but it doesn't really seem to fit MKSJJ's style, even though everybody's kind of playing it right now.
It might fit a Kittens style, though.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of would. The Yasuo was a little underwhelming. He did make some plays. He was probably one of the lone bright spots on this team this time around, but
he came out of lane with about a 40 CS lead.
Yeah, he did. And that, it's against Chunky Fresh, who was on a champion that could zone him very effectively in Azir. And we'll see if he does go for that this time. They don't have to take it on first rotation, as you mentioned. It's not exactly in danger of being picked away. Not as much.
They're really thinking hard about this first pick. There's a lot of things open, but I agree with prioritizing Corki in this situation. It's not a champion that you want to give over to Nien, and it's one of the champions that Huspark had the most success on yesterday. I would say that the Ezreal pick just really fell flat on its face. And Chunky, it just seems like his go-to is Lissandra. Of course, we remember yesterday to their game number 3 in that best-of-3 series that qualified them for the semifinals against Storm. He had a game-winning ultimate later in the game where they were actually behind up by a lot, and they came back in it. And so, even though Chunky Fresh has struggled in some of the matches that we've watched, he's really starting to come into his own as a top laner.
Yeah, he's had a pretty impressive performance across the board. I think even in the games that Fusion really struggled in, he played incredibly well. As you mentioned in that third game, the really epic conclusion where they nearly lost that one. They were able to come back, and that was all thanks to Chunky Fresh with a really timely Ice Tomb. But Nintendo X on a much more comfortable champion, even though he played incredibly well on the Rek'Sai. In the expansion tournament, he played almost exclusively Jarvan. He had quite a big impact until teams really started figuring that one out. We'll see if MKZ is able to do that here. And Mini-Me is going to be on Syndra, it looks like. The only champion we've seen him play that's not LeBlanc.
Yeah, he's played LeBlanc, and I think, well, actually, he did play Orianna.
I thought he played the Syndra yesterday.
He might have.
That was a long series.
It was a long series.
It was a very long series.
Somebody played Orianna, that's all I know. But Executioner Ken, definitely a support player that's known for his Thresh. He's been around for a long time, and Thresh has always been sort of one of his main champions.
You're right. I think they played Orianna when they had
the Poro.
Yeah, because they had a Cadian on Yasuo. That was the third game.
Yeah,
and that was where they had all the displacement. Yeah, no, you're right. He did play that. So he'll get that locked in. Executioner Ken going to be on the Thresh this time around, and also Nien hovering the Jinx. We haven't seen Jinx too much. I believe this tournament.
No, not this tournament.
Yesterday.
But Nien, when he made his transition back to AD carry, Jinx was one of the champions that he played the most. When I was doing a lot of scouting for the expansion tournament, he was playing a lot of Jinx in their ranked 5s matches. And I wouldn't be surprised if they pick it up. But he actually locks in the Caitlyn, which is something that he played yesterday. They did end up losing when he played that, but he was one of the bright spots of their team in that sort of composition that they had.
Also the Braum, too, for trance therapy. I was really thinking it would be a Jinx because it's very good combo with Braum just because of the concussive blow stacks are really easy to accomplish when you have the pow-pow speed. But also not terribly difficult with Caitlyn as well. It's an incredibly safe lane for Nien Tanso, and he seems to thrive in situations where he doesn't really have too hard a time to deal with. They don't know the jungler they're going to be up against, so it's definitely a conservative but not a really punished pick up there. And they also have some very good late game scaling as a result.
Well, if you remember back to when Braum was first released, a lot of players that were playing on the PBE that were theory crafting, or a lot of pro players that were, they were saying, oh, the Braum Caitlyn lane is overpowered. And it didn't turn out to be exactly like that, but for the first couple weeks after it was released, that was one of the most highly contested bottom lanes in the game. So it's still a strong lane. I think there's other lanes that are stronger out there, but if there's anybody that's going to be comfortable on those two champions, it's going to be Nien, who is still one of the last few remaining of the Caitlyn guard in North America, and Transu. If you've been watching him in the challenger scene for the past couple months, for his time on Cognitive, he played a couple games on Braum as well.
Now, as Fusion tries to look at what their last lock-in is going to be, I want to talk a little bit about the Aatrox pickup. Acadian is definitely what you would call a non-traditional player in any sense. He plays
by his
a
own
lot
rules.
of strange things. I mean, the last time I think I saw Aatrox was Darien on Gambit last season and very early before he was bugged.
Well, Freddy was drawing bans for Aatrox.
Oh, that's true. Freddy, too.
During Worlds, so...
Yeah, okay, well, there we go. And there's a Wukong lock-in, so that's something also a little bit unusual. This means the Jarvan could potentially go top, or the Wukong could.
Looks like it's going to be a mid lane Jarvan.
That would be interesting.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, this is gonna be a different kind of game, isn't it?
Mid lane Jarvan is the only thing that makes sense, because Wukong is not nearly as good in mid lane or in top lane. And Chunky Fresh seems to have a little bit of a limited champion pool right now, because he hasn't been a top laner for that long, and we only saw him play a few champions yesterday: Aurelia, Lissandra, and Azir. And if you look at their rank 5s matches, he plays just a very small pool of champions, and Lissandra is one of those. So we talked about it yesterday, but mid lane Jarvan is a thing, and it actually, I think, is really good against Syndra, just because he's really great against immobile mages, immobile squishy mages.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really, really good point. And he's incredibly tanky. He's going to get even further tanky the longer you go into the game, and it gives you a lot of sustain as well. Having the Wukong also helps your team fight out quite a bit. We'll have to see how this one goes, but a lot of different pickups this time around the board as Fusion starts off game number 2. 4 members massing down on this bot side, leaving Nien pretty close as well.
The mid lane Jarvan actually focuses a lot more heavily on damage than like a top lane or a jungle Jarvan. A lot of times you'll see mid lane Jarvans go with like early Brutalizer, or even just rush a Hydra, and probably see him pick up a Hex Drinker as well, but they transition into tank stats a lot later than like a normal Jarvan, but we'll have to see what he decides to do. He functions sort of like an assassin when you play him from the mid lane.
It's sort of a weird thing to say about Jarvan, but it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Fusion, you gotta wonder, was that part of their plan all along, or did they just pick up the Jarvan on first rotation because it's so strong they had to deny it away? MKSJJ clearly prioritizes Vi in a lot of these situations that he's not able to get some of those champions. She's solidly second tier. It makes a lot of sense, but yeah, it seems like everyone has their favorite second tier jungler that they're going with these days.
I have no idea. I think Fusion just picked the Wukong because they felt like it.
Nintendo was just like, okay.
It doesn't like really make... I mean, it makes sense, but you can't help but feel like there's better options right now. I think Nintendo just said, you know what, I'm going to play Wukong. Could someone else play Jarvan?
Yeah.
And who he said, I'll play it. And he said, okay. And then just built the comp around that.
I like how you're just narrating the comms. Now, Host Park is taking the Krugs very slowly, but there are still 3 members of Fusion here, and they're going to reveal themselves. And he has no idea they were there. Uh-oh. He's in very real danger of getting stunned up, and he will under tower. They're going to spend the Ignite, and I think he's going to get away from that one, actually. But a really, really curious... I don't even want to call it an invade. They just kind of hid in the brush and waited. Host Park can't actually safely back just yet. Now he'll be able to, but he's incredibly low to start this game off, and Nintendo going to be taking the red of Monster Kittens, while MKSJJ did the same thing to him.
Now, Wukong doesn't have that great of a clear. He actually also has a really hard time with the new jungle, because even before the jungle changes, where it wasn't even that hard, he had a lot of trouble clearing the jungle without being too low of health, and Executioner Ken doesn't really have much of an option here but to try and disrupt this. And Minime's coming around to the side. Nintendo X could be in some trouble.
Yeah, he could be. He's still trying to fire down this red, getting some help from Nien, but Executioner Ken is still there. Trance Therapy disconnects for just a second, and while it's all happening, Nintendo actually making it out alive, but Nien may not be so lucky. Trance Therapy coming back at a good time to stick around. Hoohee, and he's got the flag and drag. First blood. Hoofspark in some trouble, stunned up by the concussive blows. They might find him as well. One more hit would do it. Trance Therapy gonna take the kill. And that is just Fusion showing up and doing these crazy aggressive invades, dives, and really putting Monster Kittens on the back foot.
Yeah, in this bottom lane, 1 CS for Hoofspark. No flash either.
He's had literally no time to do anything. He's had to go and help out.
Yeah, that's a kill picked up, or, well, 2 assists picked up for Nien, and that was just a beautiful, the flag and drag flash combination, not giving his opponents any time to react.
Well, and Nintendo just tags out, and he says, okay, that's fine, you guys go ahead. So, Huhi, it's kind of like they're playing... They still have effectively 2 junglers, one that can just kind of tap in and make the plays, and they're really more interested in trying to get the early kills and mind game out Monster Kittens, which they've been just able to outplay so far. Mini-Me taken pretty low by Huhi, who's just not getting punished at all for this Jarvan choice.
He throws the ball backwards. That's awkward.
Just going to dribble it.
MKSJJ not able to get a blue steal in that situation. Waste some time, actually.
Yeah.
But not too big of a deal.
For the top lane, Acadian and Chunky have been kind of poking each other out. These are definitely more, you could say it's a fighter and a mage, and they're kind of a lot of burst, generally speaking. Acadian, that Bloodwell passive will keep him alive, so the health bar is a little bit more deceptive than it normally would be.
I think I've only seen this matchup one time, and it was...
I have never seen this matchup as far as I can tell.
It was in the EU LCS where Freddy was, SK versus Fnatic. Soaz was playing top lane Lissandra.
Back when it wasn't cool.
Yeah, back when it wasn't cool. Exactly. I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, I don't either. It's just such a blur, kind of. But yeah, Acadian, again, he's been the king of strange picks, or at least strange for the meta. And on this Aatrox, he's actually outlasting fairly well. Chunky Fresh, you can just continually send out those Blades of Torment to really... Well, I mean, that's a pretty apt description if you're dealing with it on as Chunky Fresh is. But Fusion, they have a lot of weapons here. This is such a safe lane in the bottom side that Nien really shouldn't hardly get touched, and he can just chase Hoofspark away. Look at this forward positioning just to freeze this lane up as best he can. They've got a pretty big wave built up, so they can't hold it that way for long. But they're not really allowing Hoofspark to get any sort of meaningful farm. He's not even got double digits yet.
So keep it in the spirit of mid lane Jarvan, who he does build that early Brutalizer. And you have to be careful when you're laning against this. As soon as he hits 6 with just an EQ combo, Cataclysm and an Ignite, and his passive empowered auto attack, that's almost all of a Syndra's health.
Here we go. Cadian almost gets chunked down by Chunky. There we go. Comes back up with the Bloodwell, though, sticking around. And Nien Tanso a little bit in trouble right now. Ignite's burning his health bar. He burns his flash as well to get away. Trance Therapy by himself. Here comes Hoofspark, but he's not even needed. MKSJJ just comes out of the blue and picks him off. Trance Therapy now. Taken out by Executioner Ken. Nintendo Dex caught on a hook, but he should be able to chase down Executioner Ken. Teleport coming in. And it's just getting all sorts of crazy in this bot lane. Huhi finding MKSJJ. Nintendo Dex combining with him, and they'll pick up the kill. Dragon is up here. It'd be incredibly early, but they do have the tank stats to be able to outlast it.
Yeah, they effectively have like 2 jungle champions here. And Fusion once again now taking a lead, but...
Oh, teleport on the Lantern! I haven't seen that in a while. Here comes Acadian. They're gonna try to fight this one out. Blades of Torment, and they focus onto Huhi. Executioner Ken, though, nearly getting popped. Yes, he will. Chunky Fresh, can he escape? No, he can't. That's a double kill. Going over to Mini-Me, who comes out of the blue here. Trance Therapy now in the front. It's like this fight just never ended.
And they're going to chase down here, but Hoofspark is back, and you are right. This fight is not going
too far forward. He might be able to live through that. I don't think so. That's going to be another pickup. And here we go. Nien Tanso by himself. Maybe he can get a pick. No, he can't. Acadian staying alive. And he gets the Hex Drinker proc as well for a little bit of extra magic sustain. But now it's going to be Monster Kittens starting up this Dragon. This has been such a weird back and forth for the last minute that it's kind of hard to take stock of where we are. But all said and done, Monster Kittens grabbed themselves their first Dragon of not just the game, but the series.
A really chaotic start, and Fusion actually had a really big advantage. early on. They had a lot of kills across the map. They had that really great level 1 where Huhi was able to pick up a kill and an assist. But that fight just dragged on way too long. And the bottom lane here, Trance Therapy and Nien just got way too forward twice in a row. Nien actually died in that fight, ran all the way back to the lane, and then died again in the same fight.
Yeah. Sometimes they call that feeding.
Sometimes they do. There would be a 5 times report in all chat coming out.
Fortunately, his teammates are very understanding about this. Oh, Chunky Fresh. Double time on Acadian with Huhi. And it really is like having 2 junglers and no mid lane.
Yeah, the roam coming in from Huhi is really big. And it looks like he is going to go for Hydra's second item, which is going to make him very, very scary. Now, it's going to be hard for him to pick up kills on a Mini-Me if Mini-Me times it well, because he can just scatter the weak through his flag and drag. And since he's building so much damage early on, he's actually really squishy.
Comparatively for what a Jarvan should be, you're right. But Mini-Me has also been the kind of bright, shining star so far of this Monster Kittens squad. He's got half the kills of the team. Really, a lot of them came in through that fight, but that's where a Syndra will really thrive in compressed areas like the jungle, being able to take a fight when you can't get out of range of Scatter the Weak without going backwards. So really, really well played so far from him, but he has had some trouble in lane against this Jarvan that you mentioned, could be a pretty decent counter pick.
Even though Nien and Trance had some trouble with their positioning in the last engagements, they still hold on to a decent lead, and of course, it's always really scary to go up against a Caitlyn because she's got a strong laning phase, she's got a dull mid game, but then she really comes back and is a super strong force in the late game, one of the strongest late game AD carries, just a lot of because of her range and because of the innate steroid with her headshot.
Oh, Chunky.
Oh, he's in
like
trouble.
Yeah, he's got his blood well on. He's got so much sustain right now. He flashes, prompting the flash from Chunky Fresh. Frozen Tomb, and not enough range on the Blades of Torment. Acadian just barely doesn't get it. And he's going to proxy a little bit. Not much left to do, but they should be able to take out this tower now that MKS JJ showed up.
You can see the sustain coming in there from Aatrox as well. One of his strong points is being able to just push someone out of the lane, utilize his passive to just gain leverage over it, and then be able to sustain enough to just sit there. So Acadian, he's really making these unorthodox picks work for him. There's not many people that can play Aatrox effectively. Aatrox is very susceptible to just being shut down and then being forced to build full tank and just sort of being a knock-up bot at the beginning of a fight, which he's very squishy, and it takes a lot for his sustain or his damage to be able to ramp up because he relies so much on auto attacks. So he's not a very versatile champion, and like I said, very susceptible to being shut down. So you have to be really confident to be able to play him effectively.
He's not too bad of a scoreline right now. Chunky has been doing better if you look just in terms of KDA, but kept even in farm. He's been very effective in fights. This Lissandra pickup seems to be Chunky's calling. He's very, very effective at it. He knows exactly who to target with the Frozen Tomb when they do get into these really scattered fights. And now in the bot lane, MKS JJ getting pulled on in. Assault and Battery onto Nien. Tanto teleport, though, is coming in, and they will already take down Nien. But here is Chunky Fresh looking for Executioner Ken. They should find him. Nintendo Dex coming and joining the cavalry has arrived. They will get a 1-for-1 here, but they're going to have to work for it. Executioner Ken just jukes him around for a moment, and it's a 1-for-1 trade.
I don't know. They were hesitating quite a bit there in who to focus, and they actually had the numbers advantage. They had Huhi coming up, and they also had Nintendo coming up as well. He held on to the ultimate as well, and still have Frozen Tomb.
Yep, and he's going to use it. They find, whoa, the Cyclone, Hoofspark, having to flash away. Acadian's there to save him as well, though. So now both teleports have been used. Chunky Fresh in a little bit of danger. Can he get the juke out with the Glacial Pass? I don't think he can. He's actually in the wrong area and shut down thanks to the tower. Going over to Acadian. Well played there. Just a little overzealous play by Chunky Fresh, but they did manage to get a couple of kills out of it.
Yeah, meanwhile, Huhi goes pretty much all in onto Mini-Me in that mid lane, and they both use Flash plus Ignite. And Huhi comes out on top by only a little bit there, forcing Mini-Me to not quite go back, but puts him on his toes. Very even mid lane matchup right now. Minimi still has a little bit of an advantage with a little bit of a kill score advantage, but it's really not much. And of course, we talked about how mid lane Jarvan a lot of the time sort of functions as an assassin, because he usually builds a little bit more damage heavy. Being in the mid lane, he usually is up against squishier targets where he needs to assassinate. And building the Tiamat immediately after the Brutalizer, probably going to be a Hex Drinker coming up next.
Yep, here comes MKS JJ. Whoa, Nien just barely moved out of that one, but he can't avoid all the damage. Just shredded away, and thanks to Hoofspark, he is back to Fountain for just a moment. Good pickup there. MKS JJ's been all over the map here. Now Nintendo X is in some trouble, but he clones it on out. Acadian taken nearly down, but the Bloodwell is on. Here we go. Chunky Fresh, Ice Prison, and they will be able to slay Acadian. Chunky Fresh taken down as well. MKS JJ coming up with the kill for that. Is a 2-for-1. And Huhi gets the pick off on MKS JJ. Executioner Ken by himself, trying to make the flay. Not quite enough damage, but here comes Mini-Me and Hoofspark. They might have just baited him in. Unleash the power, and a Rampage kill picked up for MKS JJ.
And what an escape by Executioner Ken as well, utilizing his hook so well. And the box, that was just beautiful thrash play there. And of course, Mini-Me helping him out with that scat of the week.
Talk about trusting your teammates. He really knew that they were going to be able to make the plays, and he just buys enough time for MKS JJ and Mini-Me to arrive. Really, really well done here. And you know, Monster Kittens, what's crazy about this is, as bad as it looked last game, Monster Kittens have been trading really well even here with Fusion, and there's just some sloppy plays around the side that can be taken advantage of. Dragon's now live. Monster Kittens are going to start this one up. They have the first. They can get the second here. There's really not that many people in position on Fusion's side to take it, but they know this is happening. We could have a fight on our hands, Azumo.
And it's also refreshing to see Monster Kittens have a little bit more diverse carries so far in this game. In their victories yesterday, they relied a lot on Acadian to get them ahead, but in this one you see Hoofspark, who had a really rough early game, coming back, doing work. Mini-Me in the mid lane as well, and MKS JJ. Their carries are coming from different positions than they were in game number 2, in their game number 2 of yesterday, in their whole matches yesterday.
Yeah, but they've shown that it's not just champion pool depth. They really are able to mix it up in the way that they approach these fights. And this is what's keeping Fusion on the edge. They're just not used to this style of play, this really scrappy, unorthodox play that Monster Kittens are throwing out. And this is, you know, this Monster Kitten squad is nothing like what we saw in the North American LCS expansion tournament. Very different. And ahead of the Challenger Series, it's definitely showing some strategical depth that we didn't see them have previously.
Yeah, Hoofspark, again, being the only member remaining. They actually had a few roster swaps immediately before the expansion tournament, which could have affected them, but it seems like they've settled on these guys. A lot of players that people don't know much about. Executioner Ken, been around, has a lot of experience in the Challenger scene, has a huge depth of knowledge of the Challenger scene as well, and of the players in the Challenger scene. Maybe this is the roster that they're going to stick with.
Certainly seems to be working out well for them so far. Gold game pretty even, 2-1 in towers, led by Fusion, but there are 2 dragons to Monster Kittens, to the none of Fusion. And this game is kind of settled into an uneasy ceasefire for the time being.
Ned has been struggling. He had a really fantastic start where they were just taking it to Hoofspark and Executioner Ken. They had like a 20. At one point, it was 25 CS to 6. They killed Hoofspark early on, pushed him out of lane, and then they just had a couple positioning errors, and it really just allowed this bottom lane for Monster Kittens to pull themselves back into the match, pull themselves back into the game. And they've struggled to make things happen. Oh, Acadian, whoa!
Yep, no Bloodwell
Where
passive
did he go?
available. He just coming up huge. And you know, when one team member of Fusion doesn't do well, there's another Huhi at 4-1-4 on this Jarvan. His kill participation is magnificent. His itemization is goofy, but he is just making some serious plays.
I don't even think this is goofy right now. This is just standard build right now.
Well, for a mid lane Jarvan,
For a mid lane Jarvan, yeah. This is coming from a guy who who plays a lot of mid lane Jarvan. Usually it's Brutalizer, Hydra. If you're against an A or an AP mid, you bring Hexdrinker and then transition right into a Last Whisper.
And they're using him to split here too. I mean, he's got such good clear right now, wave clear, that he's able to just draw pressure. And you can see that MKS, JJ, and Executioner Ken, they were going down to him. But then as soon as that happens, tag in the middle, Fusion starts to push down that. And they're getting dragged around right now. So Monster Kittens, they may be looking relatively decent, but if they get caught out like that, they just don't really make the huge plays. Acadian's kind of outclassed there by Huhi.
Not really even outclassed. It's just Huhi has just had so many opportunities so far in this game to get more kills. And Acadian's holding his own in the lane. He's trying to find some farm, but his passive was down. It still had a little bit left on the cooldown. It's the one thing about Jarvan though is
Mini-Me. He's going to get chunked pretty low. Zanya's Hourglass is on the Nintendo Dex with a Cyclone. Shutdown kill going over to Huhi once again. He's got a 5-1 score now. Acadian trying to make something happen to buy some time, but they're going to be able to shut down the Vi and the Aatrox. 3 kills. Trance Therapy getting one of them before he goes down. Chunky Fresh caught up, and that is going to be a double kill going over to Hoofspark. They still got some signs of life. 3-3 is the tagline of that fight, and it's 14-14 total in kills. This game is so very close.
That went about as good for Monster Kittens as they could have hoped. Getting initiated on under their turret. They only had 3 members there at the beginning of that fight, but they're able to at least trade 3 for 3. They do lose a turret in the process, but at least they still get something. Big thing though, shutdown gold went over to Huhi. That's a pretty huge deal for a guy that's already really far ahead so far in this matchup. And
he's 2 levels up on Mini-Me as well, and just pretty much everybody on the side of Monster Kittens is a much lower level. And yeah, Huhi is just taking it to Monster Kittens. Not solo, but he's staying safe. They're trying to focus him. He's got a Last Whisper off the proceeds of that. I mean, he's really just taken quite a lot of the gold share this time around, and it's working really well for Fusion.
Yeah, I mentioned Jarvan is functions when he plays in the mid lane like an assassin, and he, unlike other assassins, sometimes he just doesn't have ways to get out. I think of him a lot like Talon, but just because he's an assassin that can take out a target really quickly, but he just doesn't have any escape tools. So once he's in, he's in.
Well, here we go. Mini-Me pretty low. Barrier is on him, but it won't save his life. Chunky Fresh comes around the side and picks up the kill.
The little zoom in there, that's pretty cheeky.
Is just a little bit. All of Fusion clearing out the wards around this dragon side. 20 seconds till it spawns, and they do need to grab one back here, and they're in prime position to do it. Chunky Fresh now finds Acadian. Look at the damage that Acadian's able to put out. Flashing forward, Zanya's is on. He's not going to live through this one, though. A little bit of a missed time, Blades of Torment, but Acadian picks it up anyways, and now he's splitting up the top side unopposed, but they're going to trade this for Dragon, or at least attempt to.
Still a little bit risky. I guess Acadian doesn't have teleport, so not too risky, but it would be
Tower's down, but here's Huhi.
A 4v4 situation.
I don't think he's going to live through this one. He's not got the Bloodwell up just yet. Ooh, he's going to pick up another kill.
So much damage.
Yeah, but they did get the tower out of that, so Monster Kittens has to be happy about that just a little bit. The only towers they've taken are on the top side, but they've taken both the outer and the inner.
So Fusion starting to make their comeback in this game.
Oh, Executioner Ken. Is he going to get away from this one? Ace in the hole, and they've knocked him up as well. That's going to be the end, being able to finish that one off, and they chase Hoofspark away. But MKS, JJ, and Mini-Me take down another tower in the middle.
Surprisingly, Nien's very first kill so far in this game. That's much needed at a point in any given game where Caitlyn usually has a weak point. Caitlyn, a champion that has a strong laning phase, falls off in the mid game, gets stronger in the late game. Being able to pick up kills in a situation where you'd otherwise be weak is a pretty huge deal. And Nien relying on his team a lot right now to be able to carry him through this portion of the game, especially after a couple errors caused him to fall behind.
Yeah, you know, he's had 2 Caitlyn performances so far in this tournament. Both of them have been not necessarily bad, but a little bit lackluster from what we've come to expect from the AD carry of Fusion. So it's curious that he does go back to this champion now and again. It's not a terrible choice, but it just seems that there's better options on the board.
Well, in the first game yesterday on Caitlyn, he actually single-handedly kept his team in the game. He had the only positive score out of all the Fusion members in their loss yesterday. There was one point in the game where he was the only member alive, and he was like taking on 3 people at once and still managed to come out with a kill and stop the enemy team from going. So
it's true, but it didn't seem to synergize exactly with the team the way that they wanted it to. And
yeah,
they just had Fusion kind of fell to pieces in that match, anyways.
They just had a rough pick and ban phase overall. But I think Caitlyn's pretty good here, especially in the late game, when he'll just have so much. you look at this, everything's up front. They have the mid lane Jarvan, which has EQ Cataclysm up front, Braum ultimate, the Cyclone coming out from Wukong, and then the Frozen Tomb. Everything's up front. It takes a lot of attention off Nien. So a champion that has really powerful auto attack power later in the game, with Headshot being sort of a pseudo steroid, a very powerful one at that. This is a great comp to fit a Caitlyn into.
It's very true. And Fusion should be able to hold out late game quite well. They're in not a hugely comfortable lead, but enough of one. They're letting Huhi just scare MKZ silly at this point, and they started to grab back objectives that they were missing out on earlier in the game. And you know, after that last performance in the previous game where they just steamrolled over Monster Kittens, you know, they definitely had to have some confidence going into this one that they can take this team down and reach the finals. So if they can do it in this game, it'll be a 2-0. It'll be the only 2-0 so far of today. And then if they do that, they'd face off against Team Dragon Knights, the only other team who's had a 2-0 since the round of 8 started.
It's hard to look at the scaling in this game because while Huhi is very far ahead, I feel like he's going to fall off a little bit late game. Once he, like I said before, once he's in... What?
Whoa! Where did Huhi go?
Yeah, we didn't get to see that one, but he went down quick.
Yeah, really surprising considering how big he is at this point, but I guess the question isn't who is he, but where is he?
Yeah, that's true. Well, you could see he used the Cataclysm and the Flash right as he went down there, but it just wasn't enough, and that goes towards the point that I was going to make. Jarvan, once he's in, and building full damage like this, you're a little bit susceptible to being killed out, and as this game goes on and players start to get tankier and harder to kill, he might become less effective.
Well, teleport is on, though. They're going to make this a big fight. Ice Tomb is out. There we go. Claw to safety if you can. And instant on his Hourglass. Mini-Me, they're going to find Chunky Fresh. Fires him down. It's a 1-for-2 trade so far, but it could be even more. Acadian, blinking health bar, trying to stick around and stay alive in a really chaotic fight that sees that tower nearly shredded down with Fusion defense.
Yeah, not a huge victory. They do come out on top as far as kill trades, but they aren't able to get an objective out of that. So I'm not sure how they're going to feel about that engagement there. They engage really closely under the turret. Nintendo Dex has not been as effective as he'd probably like in this matchup here. He had a Cyclone, a pretty decent Cyclone there, but it only hit one target. He died very quickly when he went into the fight. And he's just not tanky. I mean, look at his items right now. The only thing he's got, the finished Warrior Enchantment on his Ranger's Trailblazer.
And then a lot of different pieces of armor, effectively.
Yeah.
He's trying to mix and match on. Here we go. They're going to look for Trance Therapy. Here comes Acadi, and this guy, oh, he's so bloodthirsty, and they find the Assault and Battery looking for Trance Therapy. They've spent quite a lot of them. Now they hook in Huhi, a much better target for this one, but he jumps on Cataclysm, and Hoofspark is able to kite him out. A godlike kill, and they're still going, looking for the Entanto. There's still some fight left in Monster Kittens here, but they find one, and that's about it. Maybe not, because Chunky Fresh gets himself right in the middle and gets himself killed. 30 seconds on the Dragon, not the greatest timing for Fusion this time, and if they take it, Monster Kittens would be at their 3rd.
And just a really rough place for Fusion to try and turn the fight around there. They probably could have just left Trance out to dry and just been okay with that situation, but Huhi said, you know what? I want more. He tried to assassinate Hoofspark. Even if he had done that, he still would have just died right on the back of that and still not been very effective in that fight. So overall, Monster Kittens trades 2 for 0. But this is a big win for them because they pick up 2 turrets across the map and pick up their 2nd dragon of the game.
Well, it's a 3rd, actually.
That's Monster Kittens 3rd?
That is Monster Kittens 3rd.
Oh, 3rd, yeah, you're right.
Because Fusion got the other one.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, they get the movement speed boost now. and that's going to help them even more to try and find fights at the angles they want. I mean, Fusion was ahead pretty much up until that point. Now they're going to start a Baron up, and this is actually brilliant right now because there's no way Monster Kittens can get back and stop this in time. They've got the damage to burst it down, and Fusion with this incredibly quick decision-making. It's still really dangerous, though, because here comes Executioner Ken and Acadian. They take it down. They find Executioner Ken. Horrendous timing here from Monster Kittens. They're going to lose one at least and have to bail out. So they gave up a dragon, but Fusion says that's just fine. We'll take the other one on the map.
And what a call from Fusion there. It's not even like Monster Kittens like forgot about Baron. There was actually a decent choice for them to go for the dragon and then have Executioner Ken head immediately over to the Baron to start getting control. But a very bold move by Fusion. It's sort of tough to make that call when you come out from a disadvantageous fight and say, let's just go for the Baron. We have to take it before they get there. If we get caught and we lose a team fight, that could just be the end of the game for us.
Yeah,
but that's just a call that you have to make.
Incredibly bold move by Fusion. But you know that Baron is pretty much the reason that they won their series yesterday. So he is their friend right now, and they do grab that buff, have a little bit of a chance to start pushing things in. So a really back-and-forth series of fights, a really back-and-forth series of objective grabs is now seeing a fairly even game, but Fusion are on the siege.
He's waiting off to the side here, looking for a target to burst out, but Trance Therapy probably not the one that he wants.
Yeah, he's going to get spotted out by that ward, so an interesting 3-2 split push, if you want to call it that. Chunky Fresh nearly eats a hook from Executioner Ken, but they're able to make full use of this Baron buff right now. No one really defending in the top side, so they'll have to send someone back here, and Trance Therapy actually wading his way through the jungle while the rest of Fusion is being chased away by Monster Kittens.
And Indian Trance should be able to take down this herd in the top lane. Mini-Me cannot defend against both these guys.
Oh, and perfect slowdown, too.
He's still not hurting that much with the ace in the hole, but he's starting to ramp up a bit. He's only got 2 items at this stage. We talked about how he had a rough early game, but he's definitely going to outscale Hospark as this game progresses.
Yeah, I really like the way that they're splitting this up because Trance and the Entanso are able to drag pressure away, or they'll get objectives guaranteed. Mini-Me by himself can't really deal with those two, and Fusion is more than happy to just try and kite Monster Kittens, the remnants of their team, around. Oh, they're going to find Acadian. Oh, isolated just a little bit. Bloodwell's going to get popped. They should be able to take him down after that. Executioner Ken, though, with the lantern. Can he get away? Yes! Oh, he can! But he's going to be knocked up, and Ignited should go down. There we go. Nintendo X getting the kill, and all of a sudden, it's become a massive fight. MKSJJ going to get a kill. Shut down, though, however, goes over to Huhi. Gets even more gold for himself. 3 kills for 1 as Trance Therapy goes down, and they've got themselves another tower on the side of Fusion.
And still 30-second death timers on a lot of the key components in this team comp for Monster Kittens. They still have Baron buff available, 1 single siege minion left. Oh, and it dissipates right there. So poor timing. They still might be able to take down this inhibitor turret, but it's going to be pretty risky. Oh,
Chunky is pretty low here. You got to be careful checking into Mini-Me like that. And Chunky Fresh baits himself in a couple of Zanyas there. Chunky's going to go down, but Mini-Me is going to actually stick around for a minute. MKSJJ, are they pulling this defense off? It looks like they are, and that is going to be 3 kills there. A double for the Vi. 4 kills, excuse me. They find a massive defense, and Fusion, they lose all their Baron buffs.
And a near ace as well. Trance actually came up there right at the end as everybody else died. But maybe a little bit of over-aggression there. They actually, I think they might have had a little bit overconfidence being able to take that Baron. They have to realize that they're still technically behind in this game. While the goal lead is even, it's 3 dragons to 1 in favor of Monster Kittens. When that Baron buff disappeared, they probably should have backed off. They went a little bit too forward. And Chunky gets caught a little bit out of position because this allows Monster Kittens to just straight push up the middle and take an inhibitor turret of their own.
And this is before any of the inhibitor towers have been taken on their own side. So Fusion, they seem to be making great plays and great movements, but they throw a lot of it away by just ending up overextending there. They gave away 4 kills that were completely unnecessary on a really forced dive. And, you know, again, it's been a little inconsistent. That's kind of been Fusion this tournament. They've made some incredible plays. We've seen those flashes of brilliance, and a lot of them but then they do something like that, and you wonder, how is this the same team?
It's very true. Very true. And, I mean, some of it, maybe they have the new roster. Losing Glebe, losing McNoon, they have to get used to playing a little bit differently. Playing with Chunky's style is a lot different than playing with McNoon's style. Two completely different players. Chunky Fresh a lot more conservative of a top laner. McNoon a lot more aggressive of a top laner. Still, though, a lot of strong points for these guys. Monster Kittens as well, showing some signs of life.
They're bum rushing this middle right now, though. And actually, Uhi has not backed away from the bottom. He's only going to now. This is a power play window.
No, he's not. Even he cancels his back.
Yeah, there we go. And they've actually taken down Nantan, so they're going to get the inhibitor as well, but there's time for that yet. Acadian picks up a double kill, and he does cancel his back. This is actually huge for Monster Kittens right now. He comes on in. Where did Chunky Fresh go? Back to Fountain indeed. Nintendo a desperate maneuver to try and keep his team alive, but they're going to find Uhi turning around and focusing Acadian with another. Picks up a killing spree, and I think you're right, Azumo. This is starting to look like GG out of nowhere almost. Nintendo Dex, he's got nothing left in the tank, and he's just going to run circles around Monster Kittens while the Nexus is being fired down. It's going to be 1-1, and Monster Kittens with a surprise answer back.
Such a crazy ending to that game, and a big deal there was Huhi actually canceling his back. I'm not sure who made that call, but he was on his way back to base. And he probably didn't expect Monster Kittens in that situation to keep going after the inhibitor and maybe thinking that he could get an inhibitor turret of his own. But a big mistake, a really bold but fantastic call by Monster Kittens to just shove straight down that middle lane. But the game ended a lot quicker than I expected it to.
Both games have ended incredibly quickly, but I mean, that was just a strange reversal of fortune there. Monster Kittens, they stayed collected, and all of a sudden, Fusion went into a panic. They threw 1 member, 2 members, 3 members. Huhi had no business staying down bottom as long as he did. They needed him back. He cancels his back, and then they just get run all over. It was insane the way that one worked out. And Monster Kittens, kudos to them. They've managed to answer back after a 21-minute surrender in that first game.
Yeah.
And we're going to game number 3, Azumo.
Yeah, and we're already into picks and bans for this one. But it's good to see that Monster Kittens did not get phased, really, by that game number 1. Because that was the quickest game that we've seen, probably the most one-sided game that we've seen. Good on them for just surrendering it out and not trying to just bleed out and lose slowly. And just clearing their heads, moving on to the next game, and still being able to make decent decisions. Seemed like Fusion had a decent hold. They got over-aggressive and overconfident when they got that Baron, made a few mistakes, and then at the end there, just some split-second decisions were what won Monster Kittens the game. And right away we see Rengar, Lee Sin, Gnar, Azir, Rek'Sai, Corki ban.
Whoa, okay.
Hello.
So we're going to see some different AD carries this time around. That could have been very well first pick. Chunky is going to get his hands on the Lissandra again, but I think banning the Rengar is one thing. It's all well and good. He had a masterful performance on it, but Acadian is a guy that you just cannot seem to ban out. He has so many weapons on his team, on his side, and in his champion pool that they just have not really been able to deal with the sheer randomness of it. But here we go. Chunky Fresh does actually opt to lock in Jarvan, so likely for Nintendo, but they could take that a number of places. Aside from the end of the game indecisiveness, who he did extremely well on that Jarvan, it's still a flexible pick. They could decide to go for it, but what are the answer here with on Monster Kittens, because they have a lot of strong champion picks still available, and they're letting the timer tick down, really thinking about what they want to lock in.
It's also taking the Jarvan away from possibly Acadian as well. He actually had a really scary solo lane Jarvan, even though they lost the game yesterday where he played it. It was still a tough and
why steal lane?
Yeah, Hoofspark going towards that Lucian, which he had a lot of success on yesterday in their matches, and he found a good success with Corki last game, but it's banned. They don't want to give that over to Niantanso, so they're going to go ahead and ban it out, which is an interesting choice. It's not something that we usually see.
Yeah, the Janna now, they don't have to lock this in just yet, but really don't want to necessarily reveal what else they're doing on their plans, so they might as well flesh out the bot lane. But there's going to be no Corki this time. They could pick up Graves. They could also take a Lissandra, because, you know, well, Acadian, he plays just about anything, it seems, but you want to make sure you have that as an option as well. So they will lock it in, and then it's back to Monster Kittens to continue with a couple more picks.
Yeah, Monster Kittens just seems like a really big wild card team.
Yeah, really, they really do.
They took out Enemy Esports
very
yesterday,
different.
which we talked about had a lot of hype surrounding there.
I wouldn't be surprised if they lock Cho'Gath here.
I,
They could do just about anything.
oh, man. And they did it with style, knocking out Enemy Esports. I mean, people were thinking, oh, Inox is fantastic new mid laner, Trashy coming over from EU for Enemy Esports, and Monster Kittens just dissected them yesterday.
Yeah, well, in 2 out of 3 games, I mean, they definitely were inconsistent in the sense that they kind of fell down really hard, and you know, it was definitely hit or miss. But
they did it with style.
They did, and they did it off the back of Acadian for the most part. But they had a lot of stable parts of their team as well. One particular MKS JJ, and he's going to get his hands on Vi again in this one, but he played incredibly well in that series. Mini-Me is going to go back to Syndra, so they're still waiting. It seems like they really rally around Acadian, just picking something really crazy that the enemy team can't figure out how to deal with.
He's definitely what this team centers around, it seems. They always allow him to counter pick, or they pick a flex pick early on that he can use later on. But this is almost exactly the same team comp that we saw from Monster Kittens in the last game, just with Lucian instead of Corki because it is banned out. They did leave Zed on the board, though, with banning out Corki, and that's one of who he is favorite champions.
He does lock it in, too. And it looks like we may see the Graves. They could go back to Caitlyn. I think Graves is a really good choice here in general, though, but it's not as safe. Varus would be an incredibly safe pick, but I don't think Nian's going to take that.
Yeah, actually, would be okay with a Callista here.
Yeah, it could work. The Graves is going to be what he goes with in the end. I mean, it would be a little bit weird, awkward to throw a Janna. We've seen it already once, but I think the Graves makes a lot of sense.
They used it to pull out Janna
that's
instead
true.
of throw her in, so.
That's true. You pull her out and then throw her back in to the enemy team. Surprise. Well, the support would choose that, of course, but I think I like this fusion composition for its variety. They can fight, they can disengage, but they can also split push very effectively. And it's a lot of options, but it's kind of is sort of a smattering of strong picks. And we'll see what Monster Kittens does take for Acadian as their last choice. They know now that they will be dealing most likely with the Lissandra unless they do some crazy switcheroo and send Zed top or something. Don't really think that's going to happen, though.
Yeah, actually, this comp from Fusion seems pretty good. It has a lot of that upfront damage that Lissandra loves. With Lissandra and Jarvan, you have a lot of opportunities for engaging, and Graves and Zed are great at sort of follow-up. Aurelia does do well against
It's way more
Lissandra.
conventional than I was expecting.
Yeah, but
I want to see like a Poppy or something.
Sometimes you got to go conventional, and you can't always play crazy picks. I just don't think Yasuo would be very good in the situation. Rengar's banned out. Jarvan's picked up on the other side. As cool as Aatrox is, he didn't work out for them as well as he'd probably want to in the last game.
No, he kind of ended up being sort of this like peel fighter where he's like, hey, everyone attack me. Yeah, but and it wasn't because of him. He could have done that on a number of champions. Yeah, I agree. And it was sort of an awkward composition to really deal with anyways, so we'll see how well this one works out. Acadian, again, his champion pool seems incredibly deep. Incredibly murky, though. It's kind of hard to figure him out. On the other hand, Chunky Fresh has stayed with this Lissandra pickup, and it's a very conventional choice. It's a very strong choice. It's what won them that set yesterday, and they're banking on it being able to do it again.
Big thing here to notice right before we jump into the game, though, is double exhaust taken for Monster Kittens. It allows them a lot of opportunities to either both exhaust a Zed in a team fight and exhaust, say, like Chunky Fresh on Lissandra before he can get the Frozen Tomb off, or even the end. I like this pickup, this Summoner pickup. Not going to allow them as much kill pressure earlier on.
Yeah, definitely not. But we've seen a lot of slower starting games, and actually, this set so far has been one of the quickest we've had. It's still into the third match now, so a lot of three-game best-of-3 sets, but not for nothing. This has been a very quick back and forth, and total time really hasn't even exceeded an hour just about yet. So Nintendo X is going to find MKS JJ and wants to get a little bit of a fight going, brings his friends to the party, which is going to prompt MKS JJ to back if he doesn't escape from this one. And actually, they're chasing him pretty deep here. I'll have to back away from that one, though. Don't want to get in tower range at level 1.
No lockdown, and really no reason to just trade flashes in this situation. Nian and Hoofspark have a little bit of a duel. Yeah, and maybe trying to go for his signature. Get a few auto attacks on the second tier turret and get executed at level 1.
Especially considering you can't do damage to the second tier turret until you've taken the first.
Yeah, so he just auto attacks it and then just dies for free. Or he just dies for free.
Finds out the hard way. Oh,
Gadian!
No, it's going to be a little bit of trouble. We saw Flares doing the same thing the other day.
They have no lockdown.
But yeah,
so.
they don't have really any way to keep him in place and finish him off at level 1. There's just not a lot of kill pressure, like you said. And for all the effort there, it's not really going to be a super effective start. But Fusion, you know, very least they scared Acadian a little bit. Maybe they'll force him to be a little more passive this game, taking the Krugs out of the MKZ jungle.
And is level 2. Oh, and he goes in! Oh no! Let's look up there. Okay, never mind.
We'll have to find out in just a minute instead. So far, so good, though, and it's a fairly normal start apart from the shenanigans hanging around in the jungle. I'm really interested to see this Syndra v Zed matchup just a little bit. I do like watching Kuhi Zed. He's incredibly proficient at this champion.
He's also really aggressive.
Yeah, even early on.
Yeah, which is nice to see on Zed players. You want to shut down a Syndra earlier. Syndra can be tough to deal with in lane. If she gets a little bit ahead of you, she can really dictate the pace of that lane. Yeah,
and it's so hard to check in. You have to be able to use your shadow steps. Whoa, Trance Therapy does move away. It's going to be a really close call here for Niantanso, though. Buckshot, heal is used. I don't think he's going to live through this one. He has to burn his flash. Another one for Hoofspark, but he's minion blocked. And here's a teleport coming in. It's canceled, actually, by Acadian. Here we go, though. Hoofspark still incredibly low in this one. So is Niantanso. This is such a close bottom lane matchup. Executioner Ken now. They change targets onto him. Auto attack. One more is all they need. First blood. They're going to trade support and AD carry and Trance Therapy still alive. But the cannon minion. No, he doesn't. He loses sight of it. Here comes MKSJJ. And it's going to be a 2-for-1 in favor of Fusion, but that was just weird.
What a close battle there, too. That was pretty funny. A little bit unfortunate from Hoofspark. He used the flash in response to Nien's just to get one more auto attack on him, which would have finished him off. But he got blocked by the creep since he flashed in the middle of a creep wave. And even though First Blood goes over to Monster Kittens, it's still a victory for Fusion because they pick up 2 kills in the process, and one of those kills goes over to Nien. Actually, Hoofspark doesn't even pick up an assist.
Yeah, that's just got to be a little bit of a bummer there. And they only got the 1 kill on Executioner Ken, as you mentioned. He ends up going down in the end as well, thanks to the efforts of Trance Therapy. But it was just such a weird, close call there. And then MKSJJ just shows up a little bit too late to do anything about it. But he has been a fairly proactive jungler. Nintendo has been focusing a little bit more on clearing out his own camps for the time being. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, it's been a little bit more quiet. A lot of sustain there as Mini-Me with the Crystalline Flash start. It's not going to go down easily.
Not a normal... Well, I don't want to say it's not a standard start for Syndra.
It is and it isn't. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. It allows more opportunities for harass, but your harass isn't going to do as much, but it also allows you more opportunities to trade because you also have the sustain available for health. And oh my goodness, Acadian putting on so much damage, but takes some trades.
He's in a lot
on
of
the
minions.
backside.
That's super dangerous to go into that. Oh boy, Executioner Ken not going to connect the hook. Trance Therapy now dueling it out with Hoofspark, who's just got quite a bit of damage, but again, this is still an aggressive lane. We'll talk about it more in a minute because Acadian is in some trouble. Chunky Fresh will find him, but in tower range, having to burn his flash to get out of the way. Chunky will live. Nintendude, meanwhile, went down.
He found himself in a scuffle with MKSJJ and does not come out on top of that one.
But people use the word scuffle. Good job.
It was just a 1v1 and he just died without using flash. Neither player used flash. That's interesting. Opens up a dragon opportunity for Monster Kittens, though.
Yep, Executioner Ken, MKSJJ are here. Well, Nintendo's back up, and I don't really think they have the damage to pull this one, so Monster Kittens is going to back away. Hoofspark had to defend his tower against Niantanso and Transfer. I keep wanting to say Vampire Goku. I'm like, then I realize, nah, that's just silly.
Nian's such a troll.
Nian Trollso?
That might be his next name.
Nah, I'm already putting him as my Smurf.
Well, it was funny when I don't even remember what his name was when I was trying to do, or when people were speculating about who was the AD carry for Fusion before they announced it.
Whoop, mini-me. Might get popped here. Yes, he does. It's Huhi. But he could go down as well. MKS JJ flashing forward to take the revenge kill. Nearly eats it from Nintendo X, though, is able to get back to tower in time. A lot of one-for-ones continue back and forth, but sometimes they're 2-on-2 fights. At this time, it is actually a solo. Chunky Fresh Acadian, he's actually going to zone him away from his own tower, and he should be able to find it. Oh, Equilibrium Strike will not be enough, and yes, he does. Chunky Fresh coming up with the solo kill over Acadian.
That's a pretty big deal. We haven't seen Chunky get solo kills in many situations, so that's a really good sign for him, being able to be comfortable enough in that top lane role now to get solo kills. And maybe Acadian just thrives on playing those unorthodox picks. He did get ganked early on. He got shut down, came into lane with a disadvantage. But at the same time, he had the opportunity to counterpick. He knew he was going into lane against Lysandra, and now he's just not doing very well. There's almost a 30 CS lead for Chunky Fresh, a kill lead as well. Teleport down for Acadian, so he can't even get back in lane quick enough to get some of this farm.
Yeah, it seems like they don't do quite so well when he's on one of those more conventional choices, but everywhere else, Monster Kitten's not doing terribly bad. Fusion just kind of leading the edge here, and they have that experience, they have that team coordination. Monster Kittens does not necessarily lack, but they just don't quite operate on the same level.
Mini-me roaming around here trying to get some vision control. Now, this is a little bit different of a lineup than last time for Monster Kittens. They don't spike quite as much because of the bottom lane choice here, going with Lucian as opposed to Corki, being banned out. And of course, Aurelia being really far behind, not even being able to finish the phage early on. That Trinity Force is going to come really late.
Ooh, nice stop of the back, though. Ooh, he just knows how to continually annoy and harass.
I don't think Mini-me is really upset about that.
No, he's not. He doesn't have to back either. He's still got a decent amount of mana pool. But, ooh, he's very dangerous, even though he's just got the Blade of the Ruined King. Able to duel out. Very confident on the Zed. Now Chunky Fresh in a little bit of trouble. He can't get out, so he's going to Entomb. But he's also going to go down in just a moment if they can catch him. Acadian actually dangerously low in that one. But with the help of MKS JJ, they will take the kill.
Yeah, that should spell a Dragon opportunity here for Fusion, but they're busy taking the blue buff. I guess it's something. It's still relatively early for the Dragon, but they definitely need to go for this. And it looks like Monster Kittens is just going to concede this one over, because Mini-me decided to back. So
yeah, they're going to start this up, though. But this also means the end's a little bit isolated.
He doesn't care at all.
Yeah, you know what? He's fine. Doesn't really matter.
Oh, actually, they're coming around for a dive.
They're turning their attention here. Teleport coming on in. Flay back, but they're still going to jump onto Hoofspark. Deathmark is on Huhi, looking for him, trying to get enough damage on him to take him out, but he's kited around. Chunky Fresh will take him at the end of the day. Acadian being chased down, then they find Executioner Ken as well. A double kill going over to Chunky Fresh, and they're cleaning house on the side of Fusion here. Monster Kittens running scared all across the map. Mini-me going down. Double kill over to Huhi, and now it's all but MKS JJ. Are they gonna get it? It looks like they will. A triple kill for the Zed. That's gonna be Dragon, and there's an ace at 10 minutes.
A 10-minute ace, and the game was actually looking pretty even up until that point. Fusion seemed to have a little bit of a hold, at least over the top side of the map, but that just broke this game wide open. Not only do they get the blue buff steal, they get an ace 4-0. Nobody died. That's the big thing in that situation, plus their first Dragon of the game. So big moves being made by Fusion here. And Monster Kittens is flailing.
Huge breakout there. You're right. Monster Kittens, they did not know how to react to that. The dive was very opportunistic from Fusion, but they executed it incredibly well. Juggled aggro to the best effort of Hoofspark and everyone else to try and dodge the damage. It just was not nearly enough to get away. And yeah, you said it. An ace for none, a Dragon. What more can you ask for if you're Fusion?
Not much. Maybe a turret. Maybe a couple turrets.
I guess they'll have to wait until the next time around, but
maybe a puppy.
Well, We'll see. We'll see after this. I might take you by the pet store, okay, Azuma?
Okay. I like puppies.
I like puppies too.
I also like Fusion.
They're looking pretty good right now. That's a solid bet. And Hoofspark, he runs right into Trance Therapy and Chunky Fresh, and they just melt through him. Oh, that's just not a good thing to compound with what just happened.
No. And who knows if tilt's going to play a factor in this. It can always feel bad to get ace like that so early on, knowing that you're coming back from a huge deficit. They look at that scoreboard, see 11 kills to 4.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult to come back from. The scoreline in terms of gold isn't quite so bad as we have seen, but it's only 12 minutes into the game, so that's a pretty sizable 4,000 gold lead right now, all off the back of those kills. Turret does get taken down. Finally, that will be the first one of the game. And as you mentioned, Monster Kittens really scrambling for a solution to what just happened.
The core of their team, or the rock that it seems to be, being Acadian, at least in their series yesterday, he seemed to be the catalyst in their victories. He's behind. And usually they can rely on that top side of the map to have a lot of pressure, but they can't in this game. And MKSJJ might be in some trouble.
Going to be able to get his way out of danger, but now Acadian may not be so lucky. Chunky and Nintendo are a fearsome twosome, and they're just going to be able to force him away from the tower. Actually, he's coming back in right now. Executioner Ken, they've stopped Chunky from moving away, and he's shut down. Slight positional error punished by Monster Kittens, and now Nintendo is on the run.
Executioner Ken just forcing him off here, but meanwhile, a few members from Fusion are pushing up this mid lane. Not really going to be able to get much here. Maybe this first tier turret. But Hui is really scary here. Minimi can't really step very far into lane. He's super far away from being able to finish that Zhonya's Hourglass. Meanwhile, Hui has Blade the Rune King. Probably enough gold to go back and buy his Brutalizer as well, which is a big spike in power.
He's done incredibly well with the early Blade of the Rune King and not opting to sit on the Bilgewater and start working towards the almost Ghostblade at all, actually. So really, really good job from him, but that just is his style. He wants to duel you out every chance he gets, and the early Bork really helps with that.
The Bork.
You know why they call it that?
No, because you're borking people?
Exactly. Once you get it. Fresh in some danger. Here we go. Frozen Tomb on himself, but that's just going to delay the inevitable as Acadian combos up with MKSJJ once again
and
for another pick.
Oh, Acadian starting to come back in this one. 3-3. Rapidly approaching the Trinity Force, and Fusion has... Their lead is dwindling a little bit. It was 11 to 4 a few minutes ago. They had about a 6K gold lead. Now it's 11 to 6, and their goal lead has dwindled to about 3,500.
They let up a little bit on the pressure, and they're starting to pay the price for it. Will be able to take a blue buff here, but they need to start grabbing towers. They've only taken one this game. They've been trying to peck at the one in the middle, but they really haven't made a concerted effort, and Chunky Fresh has been left alone up here, and he's giving up solo kills, as you mentioned, letting Acadian back into this game. I think that's an oversight by Fusion.
Well, he's had a lot of help from MKSJJ, but still, that it opens up opportunities for Fusion to get things on the other side of the map, but they're just getting like blue buffs or maybe just a little bit of extra farm, pushing Minimi off the turret, but really not getting anything too tangible out of that. Now Nien is starting to really increase his lead against Hoofspark down there. It was even throughout the whole game, and then Hoofspark had that one point where he was caught in the middle and just blown up, and now he's about 40 CS down. And it's really hard for Lucian to be able to duel up against the Graves, and I think that's one of the reasons why they chose the Graves, because at this stage in the game, Lucian has a tough time. In a situation where Lucian will usually come out on top of duels, sometimes against Graves, it's just not possible.
Yeah, it really isn't at this point, and Hoofspark and Executioner Ken may have not had the greatest game so far in terms of kills. They may have been shut down and pushed a little bit farther behind, but a lot of that is just more indicative of what Fusion's been able to do to Monster Kittens in general. If they really want to count on somebody, it's got to be Acadian at this point, and that's why MKSJJ just keeps focusing on this top side of the map.
They know that Huhi is here because they see him on that deep ward in there, and he actually sweeps, so they might be able to close in on him. I wonder how long Huhi's going to wait here.
He's moving back now, but Dragon's 5 seconds away. Monster Kittens could definitely use that. There's only one been taken so far, and it was for Fusion. Meanwhile, a tower gets pushed in by Acadian, who still has his teleport available. Could come in here to take the fight, but the Dragon's already half health. They have to move now, and they could go in for a steal. MKSJJ, there we go. The teleport is in. It's going to go low. It's stolen away by MKSJJ, and now they find Nintendo Dex. The Monsoon is on to keep him alive. Still trying to focus him down. They'll finally take down Acadian, and meanwhile, Huspark, everyone is blown up by Monster Kittens. They may have gotten the steal, but they're going to pay for it with another ace, and you said it. And the death timer is 20 seconds here. There's no thing they can really take but the towers, but wow, did Fusion just absolutely activate a second win there.
Craziness, and that's their second ace of the game, where Monster Kittens hasn't even been able to respond with a kill of their own. This is the power of this team comp right here. As soon as they decide to sort of turn on the Jets, they say, okay, Lysandra, go in, Frozen Tomb, and then boom, the collateral damage buckshot burst. You saw the health bars of like Hoofspark, Mini-Me, and Executioner Ken just melt all at once. And that's just the power of this team comp right now. And I mean, shining light for Monster Kittens in that one is that they pick up a dragon and deny the second dragon from Fusion, but that's a very, very small consolation prize for what they just lost.
Absolutely, and really, it just, that Dragon Steal, if anything, revitalized Fusion to go back in there and take the kills that they needed to, prioritizing Acadian, shutting him down, and then from there it was just an easy 1-2, 1-2 repeat. And the fact that they've aced Monster Kittens not once but twice in a sub 20-minute game is certainly troubling if you are the red side team.
Yeah, it's pretty big deal, I'd say. And they're spreading the kills pretty evenly. That fight alone allowed Chunky Fresh to pick up that Zonia's, which is a big item threshold for Lysandra players. Hui's gigantic right now. He has Last Whisper plus Prush plus the Brutalizer.
Yeah, Hui's starting to be a really, really crazy deep threat, and they're not focusing him very well in fights either.
It's hard to.
Again, they've been really haphazard, and you're right. He's incredibly good on this Zed. It almost merits a ban. And, you know, obviously, it's a little bit late in the series to start thinking about that one, but who is he? Very big. That's who.
It's an adjective.
It can be a noun as well.
I guess so. Very big is his name.
Mm-hmm.
Who is he? What is he? Very big.
Acadian. Oh, just caught a little bit pensive there. Not really sure what he was doing, and who he adds to his repertoire of kills. A really slow reaction time from Acadian.
I don't think he expected him to come around from the backside.
I think he was shopping or something. I'm not sure.
I don't even know what was going on there, but he was standing still, and he died.
Yes, he did.
That's the price you pay. That's 7th kill of the game for Huhi. Fusion's starting to really pile on the pressure now. Only 1 second-tier turret remains, and it looks like they're going gung-ho for this one. Chunky Fresh down the bottom lane. He does have teleport available. So we'll see if he'll be able to make use of that.
In the mid lane, they're kind of splitting a lot of the attention of Monster Kittens here, trying to draw them off guard so they grab towers. Hui's actually backing away, though, so they're not really making super good use of that. Yeah, everyone decides, let's back off, boys, as Monster Kittens coalesces in the middle of their base.
All right, well, what can Monster Kittens do to come back into this one? Their chances are looking slim.
Oh.
It's about 11,000 gold lead for Fusion at the moment, which is very similar to the position that they were in game number 1. It took a little bit of a longer time for Fusion to get to this position. But 2 aces early on without losing a single member, it's kind of hard to come back from a situation when you're like that because the team fights are so obviously going poorly. They can't even start a fight because as soon as MKSJJ assault and batteries into these fights. He just gets either blown up or he abandons his team and the rest of his team gets blown up. But Katie once again.
Yeah, he's trying to go in on this one, but he says that's just fine. I'll take the fight. He gets shut down. But Acadian manages to live. How long is it going to be? Meanwhile, we're going to swap back up to the top and then back down to the bottom. We got juked by the cameraman there. And that is just a really close call. Huhi a little overconfident. Is only his second death of the game. And speaking of confidence right now, Nien Tonso just baiting the rest of Monster Kittens into a fight just outside of tower range. Hoofspark trying to keep himself alive, but there's a flash forward, and then all of a sudden, like that, a triple kill. He could get even more if he stays alive here. Oh, and he just might shut down. No, that's going to be Acadian picking him off, but Mini-Me is the only one alive. On the side of Monster Kittens, they'll surely give this tower up now, and they just don't seem that coordinated.
And a near ace once again, Mini-Me being the only member left alive. This is just too little too late, it seems, at this point.
Death timers aren't that long still. This is such an early game for this kind of action to be happening. But Fusion has almost a kill per minute of this game. It's just insane what they've been able to accomplish. And they nearly kept Nien alive as well. I mean, that was just crazy.
Yeah, Cadian, he had a rough start, but he's once again finding himself back into this game. Once again, finding himself to be
the carry that Monster Kittens needs.
The carry that Monster Kittens needs, but right now it's basically like the last hope that Monster Kittens has. And it's not much of a hope. It's tough to...
It's very dim.
To rest your fate.
They really do need to get back into this with more than just him, but no one on Monster Kittens is really stepping up outside of that. MKSJJ has been doing all right. He's been involved in a lot of these fights, but Mini-Me hasn't had many openings. He hasn't been able to get anywhere without dying. Admittedly, he's facing down Huhi in the lane, so it's difficult. But also, Hoofspark hasn't really done much of anything. He's still sitting on only his Infinity Edge. And now, Fusion should be able to just start up another Dragon. That will be their second of the game. And it's completely uncontested since Monster Kittens really can't leave their base.
It's really true. They don't have vision control over their own jungle, except for a little bit on the top side. They have small reprieves every once in a while as Fusion backs to shop. But that's the only breathing room they get right now. You can tell Acadian is doing his best to try and get as much farm as possible to get tanky a lot quicker. But again, all of this seems just like too little too late, because what are they going to do in these fights?
Yeah, it really is kind of strange. They're not really playing with a plan as much as just leaning on Acadian heavily, and that's not how you can make it further. I mean, this is a big stakes game. If you win this one, you guarantee yourself at least $4,000. You get that spot in the finals, a chance at even more than that. But they're just not playing like it. Acadian, really the only one who's able to come up with anything in any of these fights, and it's really just off of skirmishes. He's able to go in after the rest of his team has made an effort and kind of paid for it.
True, yeah. Fusion just biding their time right now, though. Again, they do have the luxury of being patient here. They don't have to force too many things. Not many decisions are the wrong decision when you're 14,000 gold in the lead. They would have to lose fight after fight after fight for Monster Kittens to even have a chance to come back into this one. It is possible, just very unlikely at this stage.
Yeah, and Fusion is a team that when they get ahead, they certainly know how to close out. They don't have as much of the troubles when they have a lead. It's really only when things are really uncertain and really wacky that they do start to fall apart, and this just isn't one of those games. So if Monster Kittens can turn this around, it would be quite big for them. Huhi, though, running out as fast as he can. He may not be a ninja in that case. He's more of a sprinter as he escapes with the proc of the Youmuu's Ghostblade. This is going to prompt the rest of Fusion to actually start this Baron, and a lot of damage being dealt to it very quickly. Again, there's no reaction because they're on a wild Zed hunt here, and now Executioner Kenny's going to hook up the end, but there's really no damage, and they smite down the Baron. That one is picked up very, very early by Fusion, and Huhi remains relatively unscathed.
And he's going to be able to pick up Hui's going to be able to pick up a blue buff as well. This looks like it's the beginnings of a death push here for Fusion. They're going to back off, pick up some last-minute items here, but they have all the tools that they need to be able to finish off this game now. The Baron buff, 2 dragons under their belt. That's not a lot, but again, when you're 16,000 gold, their gold lead just keeps increasing. This is the biggest lead we've seen all day. And Monster Kittens, they're not going to surrender out of this one because this is their tournament life on the line. So it's looking even more grim than that first match that they played where they surrendered out. They tapped out at 20 minutes. But they have to try something.
Well, they have been incredibly passive ever since that last massive fight off the back of the Dragon Steel. It was really, really disheartening for them to lose all of their members like that and so quickly. I mean, that's the problem. It's not even really a wombo combo on Fusion's side. They just executed so well in that fight, and that's typically where they thrive in these straight 5-on-5 fights. Monster Kitten's not keen to give that to them, but what can they really do? There's no way to pick anyone off because the only person who's really getting in your face by himself is Huhi, and they can't catch the guy.
And he's continuing his farming, his split pushing here. Doesn't really have any defensive items right now, only the Merc Treads. So it's still going to be tough for him to like 1v1 Acadian, who's got the best of him in a couple situations, but Acadian's in trouble in the end. Is by himself right now, though, but it looks like Acadian
He's running straight through the tower.
Oh, no, red buff.
Yeah, that's starting to hurt. Trying to dodge the damage. The minions, Baron buff minions, and Acadian is leading Nien all the way back to his own base here.
All right.
Any second now. We're going to zoom in on it. The Doom zoom.
I don't think Nien's going to be able to catch him.
He might just get out of this one, actually. He's got quite a lot of speed. And Arena open. Oh, over the wall. Hello. Not quite enough. And he's still going.
Okay. Eventually.
Oh, flash into. Yep. Executed.
Wait, oh, teleport!
Oh, no, he's going to save his life. Uh-oh.
Oh, the crit right at the end.
Wow,
there.
that was anticlimactic.
A valiant effort by Acadian to at least try and waste Nien's time. But meanwhile, the rest of his team is pushing up this bottom lane.
Yeah, they're going to be able to take this tower out. Well, not just yet, though. They find the catch they might have needed. MKS JJ bursted incredibly low by the Frozen Tomb. And with the minion wave at their backs, Fusion looking in prime position to knock this one over. Meanwhile, nobody's dealing with Huhi, and the Baron buff is helping him push this one in. They can go all in for this. They just need to take one more shot on the tower. Wall is up, the box rather, I should say, and that is going to be a big pickup. They've got one kill. Skishukin already. A turret's down in the top side, and here comes Huhi around it. Mini-Me bursted pretty low, and he's taken out. A double kill goes over to Nien Tanso. They're going to find Acadian as well. Deathmark is on to Hookspark. Can't even get back to Fountain, or can he? No, he can't. They're going to surrender and tap out. 29 minutes in, GG, and Team Fusion is moving to the finals.
And I don't think we could have asked for a better third game now, and that was really well played by Fusion. You got to hand it to Monster Kittens, though. They came in as a team that was relatively unknown, full of unknown players. They took out enemy esports in the round of 8. They held their own against Fusion, even able to take a game off them in those semifinals. So well played to them, but Fusion just a little bit of a rough point in game number 2. Their pick phase was, they went with the Wukong, which is not a pick that we've seen very often, but in the 2 games that they won, it was just a landslide victory, and that's not something that we've seen very much of over the past couple days with the ESL Pro Series, but very well played by Fusion. Fusion versus the Dragon Knights in the final.
Yeah, that's going to be a really spectacular series, but of course, everyone that has played in it, it's been a really great show so far. But yeah, as you see on your screen coming up next, Team Dragon Knights will take on Team Fusion, and they both look like they've been busy leveling up. It should be just a huge clash at the end of this all. I'm really excited to see how this one works out. But before we get to that one, we'll be taking a quick break. Do not go anywhere, guys. When we return, the thrilling conclusion of the ESL Pro Series Season 11 with Team Dragon Knights versus Team Fusion. We'll be right back.